Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, Episode 539, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD, Part 3. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will continue with Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. This book deals with the power of positive thinking. Also, the author addresses inhibition, anxiety, and other factors. This is a classic self-help book all the way back from 1960. Today's show will feature background footage from Rumbling Bald. Rumbling Bald is located in Chimney Rock State Park. To get there, take Boys Camp Road off of Highway 64 near Chimney Rock. Then, you, on the crest of a hill, about a mile or more in, you take a left into Chimney Rock State Park. So, now, let's continue with Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, MD. It acknowledges errors in order to correct them and stay on course. So must you. Admit your mistakes and errors, but don't cry over them. Correct them and go forward. In dealing with other people, try to see the situation from their point of view, as well as your own. Later on page 131, and continuing on to page 132. Nothing in this world is ever absolutely certain or guaranteed. Often, the difference between a successful man and a failure is not one's better abilities or ideas, but the courage that one has to bet on his ideas, to take a calculated risk, and to act. We often think of courage in terms of heroic deeds on the battlefield, in a shipwreck, or similar crisis. But everyday living requires courage too, if it is to be effective. Standing still, failure to act, causes people who are faced with a problem to become nervous, feel stymied, trapped, and can bring on a host of physical symptoms. I tell such people, study this situation thoroughly. Go over in your imagination the various courses of action possible to you and the consequences which can and may follow from each course. Pick out the course which gives the most promise and go ahead. If we wait until we are absolutely certain and sure before we act, we will never do anything. Anytime you act, you can be wrong. Any decision you make can turn out to be the wrong one. But we must not let this deter us from going after the goal we want. We must daily have the courage to risk making mistakes, risk failure, risk being humiliated. A step in the wrong direction is better than staying on the spot all your life. Once you're moving forward, you can correct your course as you go. Your automatic guidance system cannot guide you when you're stalled, standing still. Now, let's go to page 133. Continuing on to page 134 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Successful personalities have some interest in and regard for other people. They have a respect for others' problems and needs. They respect the dignity of human personality and deal with other people as if they were human beings, rather than as pawns in their own game. They recognize that every person is a child of God and is a unique individual who deserves some dignity and respect. It is a psychological fact that some of our feelings about ourselves tend to correspond to our feelings about other people. When a person begins to feel more compassion about others, he invariably begins to feel more compassion towards himself. The person who feels that people are not very important cannot have very much deep down self-respect and self-regard, for he himself is people, and with what judgment he considers others, he himself is unwittingly judged in his own mind. One of the best known methods of getting over a feeling of guilt is to stop condemning other people in your own mind. Stop judging them. Stop blaming them and hating them for their mistakes. You will develop a better and more adequate self-image when you begin to feel that other people are more worthy. Now, let's go to page 147. Continuing on to page 148 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. To his friends, Jim S. was a successful man. He had risen from stock clerk to vice president of his company. His golf score was in the low 80s. He had a beautiful wife and 2 children who loved him, but nevertheless, he felt chronically frustrated because none of these measured up to his unrealistic goals. He himself was not perfect in every particular, but he should be. He should be chairman of the board by now. He should be shooting in the low 70s. He should be such a perfect husband and father that his wife would never find cause to disagree with him, and his children never misbehave. Hitting the bullseye was not good enough. He had to hit the infinitesimal speck in the center of the bullseye. You should use the same technique in all your affairs that Jackie Burke recommends in putting, I told him. That is not to feel that you have to pinpoint the ball right to the cup itself on a long putt, but to aim at an area the size of a wash tub. This takes off the strain, relaxes you, enables you to perform better. If it's good enough for the professionals, it should be good enough for you. Now, let's go to page 152 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Opening up the valves and letting off steam is also done through such practices as the martial arts, but in much greater detail with the so-called internal martial arts, such as Tai Chi, Aikido, and Systema. And these practices, you not only consciously engage the body, you also tune in to your breathing and learn to relax the tension from your muscles. Most physical activities, even though they help by being a positive outlet for aggression, do not cover how to relax and breathe. Skills that you can bring with you throughout the day into everything you do. The feeling of insecurity is based on a concept or belief of inner inadequacy. If you feel that you do not measure up to what is required, you feel insecure. A great deal of insecurity is not due to the fact that our inner resources are actually inadequate, but due to the fact that we use a false measuring stick. We compare our actual abilities to an imagined ideal, perfect, or absolute self. Thinking of yourself in terms of absolutes induces insecurity. The insecure person feels that he should be good, period. He should be successful, period. He should be happy, competent, poised, period. These are all worthy goals, but they should be thought of, at least in their absolute sense, as goals to be achieved, as something to reach for, rather than as shoulds. Now, let's go to page 154, continuing on to page 155 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Loneliness is a way of self-protection. Lines of communication with other people, and especially any emotional ties, are cut down. It is a way to protect our idealized self against exposure, hurt, humiliation. The lonely personality is afraid of other people. The lonely person often complains that he has no friends and there are no people to mix with. In most cases, he unwittingly arranges things in this manner because of his passive attitude, that it is up to other people to come to him, to make the first move, to see that he is entertained. It never occurs to him that he should contribute something to any social situation. Regardless of your feelings, force yourself to mix and mingle with other people. After the first cold plunge, you will find yourself warming up and enjoying it if you persist. Develop some social skill that will add to the happiness of other people. Dancing, bridge, playing the piano, tennis, conversation. It is an old psychological axiom that constant exposure to the object of fear immunizes against the fear. As the lonely person continues to force himself into social relations with other human beings, not in a passive way, but as an active contributor, he will gradually find that most people are friendly and that he is accepted. His shyness and timidity begin to disappear. He feels more comfortable in the presence of other people and with himself. The experience of their acceptance of him enables him to accept himself. Now, let's go to page 157, continuing on to page 158 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. When the failure-type personality looks for a scapegoat or excuse for his failure, he often blames society, the system, life, the breaks. He resents the success and happiness of others because it is proof to him that life is shortchanging him and he is being treated unfairly. Resentment is an attempt to make our own failure palatable by explaining it in terms of unfair treatment, injustice. But as a salve for failure, resentment is a cure that is worse than the disease. It is a deadly poison to the spirit, makes happiness impossible, uses up tremendous energy that could go into accomplishment. A vicious cycle is often set up. The person who always carries a grievance and has a chip on his shoulder does not make the best companion or co-worker. When co-workers do not warm up to him, or the boss attempts to point out deficiencies in his work, he has additional reasons for feeling resentful. Resentment is also a way of making us feel important. Many people get a perverse satisfaction from feeling wronged. The victim of injustice, the one who has been unfairly treated, is morally superior to those who caused the injustice. Resentment is also a way or an attempt to wipe out or eradicate a real or fancied wrong or injustice that has already happened. The resentful person is trying to prove his case before the court of life, so to speak. If he can feel resentful enough and thereby prove the injustice, some magical process will reward him by making not so the event or circumstance that caused the resentment. In this sense, resentment is a mental resistance to, a non-acceptance of, something which has already happened. The word itself comes from two Latin words, re, meaning back, and sentire, meaning to feel. Resentment is an emotional rehashing or refighting of some event in the past. You cannot win because you're attempting to do the impossible. Change the past. Now, let's go to page 159. Resentment is therefore inconsistent with creative goal striving. In creative goal striving, you are the actor, not the passive recipient. You set the goals. No one owes you anything. You go out after your own goals. You become responsible for your own success and happiness. Resentment doesn't fit into this picture, and because it doesn't, it is a failure mechanism. Now, let's go to page 170 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. It is well known psychological fact that the people who become offended the easiest have the lowest self-esteem. We are hurt by those things we conceive of as threats to our ego or self-esteem. Fancied emotional thrusts that go by unnoticed by the person with wholesome self-esteem slice these people up terribly. Even real digs and cuts, which inflict a terrible injury to the ego of the person with low self-esteem, do not make a dent in the ego of the person who thinks well of himself. It is the person who feels undeserving, doubts his own capabilities, and has a poor opinion of himself who becomes jealous at the drop of a hat. It is the person who secretly doubts his own worth, who feels insecure within himself and sees threats to his ego where there are none, who exaggerates and overestimates the potential damage from real threats. Now, let's go to page 172, continuing on to page 173. The person who has little or no self-reliance, who feels emotionally dependent on others, makes himself most vulnerable to emotional hurts. Every human being wants and needs love and affection. But the creative, self-reliant person also feels a need to give love. His emphasis is as much or more on the giving as on the getting. He doesn't expect love to be handed to him on a silver platter, nor does he have a compulsive need that everybody must love him and approve of him. He has sufficient ego security to tolerate the fact that a certain number of people will dislike him and disapprove. He feels some sense of responsibility for his life and conceives of himself primarily as one who acts, determines, gives, goes after what he wants, rather than a person who is the passive recipient of all the good things in life. The passive, dependent person turns his entire destiny over to other people, circumstances, luck. Life owes him a living, and other people owe him consideration, appreciation, love, happiness. He makes unreasonable demands and claims on other people and feels cheated, wronged, hurt when they aren't fulfilled. Because life just isn't built that way, he is seeking the impossible and leaving himself wide open to emotional hurts and injuries. Someone has said that the neurotic personality is forever bumping into reality. Develop a more self-reliant attitude. Assume responsibility for your own life and emotional needs. Try giving affection, love, approval, acceptance, understanding to other people, and you will find them coming back to you as a sort of reflex action. Now, let's go to page 176, continuing on to page 177 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. I can forgive, but I cannot forget is only another way of saying I will not forgive, said Henry Ward Beecher. Forgiveness ought to be like a canceled note, torn in two and burned up, so that it never can be shown against one. Forgiveness, when it is real and genuine and complete and forgotten, is a scalpel that can remove the pus from old emotional wounds, heal them, and eliminate scar tissue. Forgiveness that is partial or half-hearted works no better than a partially completed surgical operation on the face. Pretended forgiveness, which is entered into as a duty, is no more effective than a simulated facial surgery. Your forgiveness should be forgotten, as well as the wrong which was forgiven. Forgiveness that is remembered and dwelt upon reinfects the wound you are attempting to cauterize. If you are too proud of your forgiveness or remember it too much, you are very apt to feel that the other person owes you something for forgiving him. You forgive him one debt, but in doing so, he incurs another, much like the operators of small loan companies who cancel one note and make out a new one every 2 weeks. Now, let's go to page 182, and continuing on to page 183 of Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz MD. Try giving yourself a spiritual facelift. It is more than a play on words. It opens you up to more life, more vitality, the stuff that youth is made of. You'll feel younger. You'll actually look younger. Many times I have seen a man or woman apparently grow 5 or 10 years younger in appearance after removing old emotional scars. Look around you. Who are the youthful looking people you know over the age of 40? The grumpy, the resentful, the pessimistic, the ones who are soured on the world, or the cheerful, optimistic, good-natured Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, caseywaters2@caseywaters.com.